Welcome to Clay Mastermind with Dawn Grant. Mental excellence and industry insights. Brought to you by the Clay Lab, your ultimate podcast for mastering the mental game of clay shooting and gaining exclusive insights from the top minds in the industry. Join us as we dive into the strategies of elite athletes, uncover the secrets to peak performance, and share powerful techniques to enhance your shooting skills. Plus, get behind-the-scenes access to the leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of the clay shooting industry. Get ready to elevate your game, sharpen your focus, and gain insider knowledge from the best in the business. Let's get started. Here's your host, Dawn Grant.
So I have Nick Hendricks here from over the waters, overseas, over to the other land over there. But thanks for being here, Nick, and I can't wait to hear all about your accomplishments and all that. If you don't mind sharing with the listeners, who the heck are you and what are some of your accomplishments?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here, Dawn. I think this is going to be interesting for both of us. I 4-time British Grand Prix champion. I've had 3 world podiums, 1 in Canada, South Africa and Florida. I've shot for England and Great Britain, and I've regularly finished in the top 10 at the world and European fit asks.
Impressive. I can't wait to hear some of your secrets.
I have won other things. I've won UK compacts and English Open compacts and things, but I don't want to bore you with that.
You know, I poked around on your Facebook page so I could get to know you a little bit, and you're a humorous man, I noticed.
Yeah, I don't like to take social media too seriously.
Yeah.
I would love for the sport to move forward, but I don't quite know how to put this into words because the amount of effort. I'm going to go off on a tangent.
Okay, go for it.
Right, so I haven't done as well as I know I could have, and it got pointed out to me in, can't remember the year, but Richard Folds won the World Fit Ask in Prague. He won a Skoda Octavia, and he turned round to me and he said, you've come out here to have fun, I've come out here to win. And it was like he just punched me in the face. I'm like, is it that obvious? I mean, I'm enjoying it. Think I'm competing, and I wasn't.
Okay.
Because I have done this a lot. I've gone out with all good intentions, and then I get the holiday feeling. I want to enjoy it. We have a few drinks, we have a laugh, and it becomes more of a social event than it does a competition. I've gone out with the best intentions to do well, and then I end up feeling getting in a holiday mode and just enjoying it, because the amount of work that you put in to be able to fund to do it for what you're getting out of it, I just thought, well, I'd rather enjoy it than I would win. And that's now I'm looking back, because when I've shot with other people, I watched them and I've looked and I thought, he really wants to win this. He wants to win it that much. I can see he wants to win it more than I do. And I thought I've never applied myself or very rarely applied myself in the same way. Because
this was a while ago.
Never been my job. No, this was actually last year. Okay. I was watching somebody last year, and I thought he's taking his competition far more seriously. This was at the Essex Masters last year, and I did win it. But when I was watching what he was doing, and I've watched him since, I'm like, you really want to win. I haven't got that hunger to win.
But yet you won. So this is going to be fascinating, dissecting this with you.
Yeah. I suppose you could say that if you are genuinely not that bothered about winning, you could end up just shooting a score relaxed and not trying as hard as what you think you should do.
Yeah.
But also, don't get me wrong, when I knew that I was on for a good combined score out of 200, so I know that I'm going to say now, that you'll be a believer of this. And basically, it was like, if you are outcome-based at anything, you're setting yourself for disaster because your thought process is going to be wrong. So you've got to have a trained process that you can actually go to give yourself something to do. Because if you're just trying to achieve something, you're not actually doing anything. But if you're actually trying to do something to get there. You're actually giving yourself something to do.
Yes.
I don't know if I put that into words properly, but
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to apply that. Like just in life, if you set a goal, like if somebody set a goal that I want to be a doctor, well, you don't just want that. You come back to the reality of today and you start taking the steps in that direction. And a lot of times people will, let's say focus on the end result, like the score, and then they don't come back into the process. And so that's what you're talking about, is being able to focus on the process. Your conscious mind can only focus on one thing at a time. So if it's focusing on the score or a previous station or the next shot or what the people are doing around you, then it's not in that moment and focused on what is a good solution, which is the process and then the target itself.
definitely. It's a bit like people saying, I'm aware of somebody doing this, that, and the other when they're shooting. But if you're actually focused, I'm not going to say concentration, I'll say it's more focus on what you're doing. You won't know they're doing something. You won't even notice because you're actually focused on what you're doing. Unless they've either have to physically touch you or shout
I
to
love
get your
it.
attention.
I love talking to champions because you guys know this stuff. So what you just explained is part of the zone state. And one of the elements of the zone state is that everything seems to disappear around you. And so like somebody shooting themselves in the foot, if they're always too focused on what, their squad mates are doing or whatever else, so the side by side and the noise that it's making or whatever, they're absolutely prohibiting themselves from going into something like the zone. But yeah, when you're in that state, time flies by and everything seems to disappear around you. Would you say you shot in the zone?
Yes, definitely, because I can remember being in one of the first Super 6 finals, which would have been my first one was Lake and East, but the one that I can remember the most about this was at E.J. Churchill's in 2014, and George Digweed won it. He shot a pair of 96s. I shot 96, 91. And when I went to the final 6 shoot-off, who was in it? I think Richard Folds, Nigel, Paul Simpson, flipping heck, the lovely Americans. I can't think of his name. Bill Maguire. I love Bill to bits. I think he's fantastic.
Who's funny, yeah.
Yeah. I think I've named 6 people. And I can remember looking at the crowd and saying to myself, flipping heck, look at all these people watching here. But when I turned around and looked at the targets, they did literally disappear.
Nice.
I didn't know they were there. And it got to the point where I turned around and look at them. And this is going to sound like a weird thing. I looked at them, but they were like statues. It was like they were there, but they weren't there. And I just turned around and watched again. It was like I wasn't interested.
Yeah. Nice.
So it's like a sort of a weird feeling. That was probably the first time I actually felt that.
That's cool.
But I didn't. I think I came 4th there. We had a sudden death shoot off with Richard Folds, and he hit the target, and I missed it.
Well, very interesting. So what got you into shotgun shooting?
My father, he had a friend that had some land, and they used to set up in a wood and set up a Sunday shoot, and they'd shoot clay pigeons. And I wasn't really that interested on it. My granddad owned a farm, and all I wanted to do was go and shoot rabbits, pigeons, anything living, which is a bit bizarre compared to the weird way to look at it now. But that's all I was interested in. So all I wanted to do. My dad say, "Oh, I want to go shoot some clays," and I'm like, "Oh, well, I'd rather go around the farm."
Right.
But in those days, it was if they weren't this, I think they set it up once a month. So every weekend that they didn't set those shoots up, we went to other shoots that were 50 birders. There weren't any 100-bird shoots then, or very few. And if they were busy and we hadn't finished by 12 o'clock, we'd leave anyway because the pubs were open and they wanted to go for a drink.
Nice.
So quite a few times I didn't get a chance to finish a shoot. But they were great fun. They were characters. I mean, Tony was an absolute amazing person. And I think characters have been lost out of this world. He was somebody that you could sit and listen to, tell a story. It could be absolute rubbish, but you'd be in stitches of laughter. It was just fantastic.
Nice.
So yeah, that's how I got into it. And then I didn't shoot clays again from about 14 to 17, and I bumped into a friend's parents that were religiously going to Doveridge Clay Sports, which has just changed hands, called Eaton Hall Shooting Ground now. And they took me there, and they said, you want to start shooting some 100-bird competitions. And that's basically, I got into there. I think I was in unclassified, I think, till I was about 18. And then I started doing 100-bird competitions. I wish I did more travelling then. But I didn't know about it. But I love travelling now. I love going to France. I think it's fantastic. And coming over to the States is great. There's a shoot in Canada this year, the ICTSF again. I think, I've been all over the place, really. So I think I'm going to go to France about 3 or 4 times at least, Cyprus for the World FitAsk, Czech Republic for the European FitAsk. I may do both European and World Compacts as well. So I've got a bit of travelling to do again this year.
Nice. How did you end up transitioning over and starting to compete?
It's basically the people you bump into, and then people say, well, why don't you come here with me? And then it just goes from there. And I think it was Steve Henshaw who I bumped into, and he said, you ought to come and do these shoots. And then you bump into other people, and they say, oh, come here. And when did I first start shooting FitAsk? I think I'm just trying to go back through what gun I had when I first started shooting FitAsk. It was a Maruku MK38 trap gun, 3/4 and full, and you could still shoot 36 gram. And I bet it was about 2000. Oh, no, it wasn't, because I shot the World FitAsk at Goodwood in 1996. So that would be about the time I started shooting FitAsk. And I think FitAsk is a great discipline. It's a shame that it's not run like I'm going to Dubai in 2 weeks to shoot the mountain competition.
Yeah.
It's a shame the World FitAsk, because to win the World FitAsk, it is the World Championship to win, and to have no financial gain to win it, I think, is a little bit sad. I'd love to see a change on that, but yeah, and the competition is fierce. I mean, you've got you guys are really competing. Well, they're basically beating us hands down now as a team thing. The French guys are like overtaking us. Yeah, I think the British shooters used to be above everybody, and now they've dropped back massively, because they don't put. I mean, if you speak to Brandon Powell, the amount of effort he puts in to shoot well, there are very few people in our country that will put that much effort in to do it.
Yeah,
they expect it more than work for it.
Which goes back to something you were saying at the very beginning, right? And putting in the work into the process of getting the whatever goal it is that you're wanting to achieve. But yeah, I had actually heard the same breakdown. I don't remember who I was talking to. It was some of the shooters, and they had come to the same conclusion as to why the U.S. was doing better right now. But I would like to go back to, so at what point did you start winning, and what do you think brought you to that point in your competitive years?
Right, so I'm going to say I didn't do much practice, but I did. I used to shoot a tremendous amount of wood pigeons, a couple of thousand a week, and I'd sell them, and it'd fund itself for me selling them on, and at the time you could get reasonable money for them, and it'd pay for your cartridge because they were a lot cheaper than they are now.
Yeah.
And I would say that was invaluable practice. But the trouble is, you can practice badly. If you are outcome-based to practice, and you're saying how well you practiced on your hits, isn't necessarily a good thing. Because I can use skeet as an example. As a sporting shooter, you can shoot 25 straight on skeet, numerous different ways, but a lot of the ways will hinder your sporting, the way that you're looking at stuff. So if you can shoot skeet, this is in my opinion, obviously there are loads.
Right.
If you can shoot skeet with very little awareness of lead, anything that wants lead then becomes easier, because your brain isn't giving it as much. So if the further away you think your gun's getting away from that target, the harder it becomes. because you're losing that connection. If you are using a picture, and I don't shoot pictures because I think they are mentally taxing, and you can get to a level with pictures, and you will, the argument can be shot down a little bit because there are people that have won things doing this. There are people that say they do it, and then when you watch them shoot, you can see they're not doing it. Because I can stand behind somebody and see what they're looking at.
Right.
And the gun will tell you a world of information if you know what you're looking at. Because one of the most important things in shooting is movement. If your movement has got to be related to what you're shooting at, and if your movement's in sync with what you're shooting at, what you hit, you'll be sent a pattern more times than what you are trying to be accurate.
Right.
That is because I've done that since I became a full-time coach. I've had customers that like to mess about and go from and try different aspects of what we're doing to try and sort out which is the best for them, which is great when when they're not constrained by time or the amount of cartridges they want to shoot. You can explore things, and sometimes I've done stuff with a customer, and I think we've got it. We've actually got the golden egg here.
Yeah.
But then you go to meet somebody else, and you start speaking like it. And this takes me back to Rolls-Royce, this has changed a bit, because this would be just under 30 years ago. And they categorise humans in 4 different personalities. And if you look at it now, some of the things, the personalities, are like 15 of them. I don't know which is actually true, because I'm not a psychologist.
Right.
I think it's easier for 4, the way they explained it. So you think you've got the golden egg and this works, but then you take it to somebody else and you start explaining it, and you might as well be talking Chinese.
Right.
In the difference in, you'd think that because you are, when I was training welding, and you can show somebody what they're doing and in time, and you've got time to do it, and you can see, and they can see, and then they can copy you, and then they can see the outcome.
Yeah.
In shooting, you are almost describing things that are invisible. Because they can't see themselves moving, or they can't see themselves stopping. They can feel it, but they can't see it. And I think there is a big thing with that, with the coaching and the understanding of what somebody's doing. And I've even filmed people, but sometimes it's helped others. Some say, this is personalities again. I can't believe I'm doing that. And other people say, well, I don't think that I did that, even though they've seen it on the camera. It's like, it's bizarre.
That is bizarre. Yeah.
I mean, I can give an example of this. This is hilarious. I don't know his name, and it's a good job because I would have named it. A guy came for a lesson with me, and he said, are the rabbits on from the competition on Sunday? I said, yes, they are. I said, they're slightly different, but they're near enough the same. He said, great. So I didn't hit any on that stand. I said, we'll go straight to it. So we went to this stand, and I said, I'm not going to ask what you did, because obviously what you did was fundamentally wrong, because you didn't hit any. Right, we're back on, I think.
There you go. Yeah, so you had said that the rabbits were basically the same.
Yeah, so we went over to that stand. I didn't ask what he did, because obviously what he did I thought was fundamentally wrong, so I thought it's pointless. So I thought I'd rather get him trying to do something. So I asked him to do a process, and he did it, and he hit the first pair, and he turned around to me and he went, can I do that again? I went, yeah. And he went, pair dead. He said, right, what I'm going to do now is show you what I did on Sunday. I went, yeah, fair enough.
Okay.
That's not a problem. And he went, bang, bang, pair. And he turned around to me and he said, I prefer what I did. And I'm like, this is bizarre. So me being me, I said, can you hear the words coming out of your mouth? And he said, don't speak to me like that. I said, I don't want to coach you.
He was serious. Was he serious?
Yes, he got really mardy.
Oh,
he got really
gosh.
mardy, and so anyway, I shouldn't have put that bit in really, but yeah. But I just thought it's bizarre how you can say I've not hit any, then he hits them, and then he said I'll do it my way. He doesn't hit them, and then said he prefers it his way, and I'm like, you meet all kinds of people.
You really do. And there are so many different personalities and stubbornness. And what you just explained, I would say that was his ego thinking I'm right and you're wrong. And somebody like that, I mean, you really, if you think about your mind or your brain like a computer, you got hardware and software, and there's only so much you can do. It's kind of like a computer can get outdated. You have to update it. And it's ideal to update it by an expert, right? So if you got an expert instructor, an expert mental trainer, a doctor, like whatever field, ideally a person would have some humility and recognize that they're only functioning with so much information, and whatever information they've got is giving them the outcomes that they're currently getting. So that's the feedback of what you're working with. And so if you want to move forward and shift from wherever it is that you're functioning, then you probably need more data. You need an update, and you should get that by somebody who's in the know.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I am a sucker for information. I love learning.
Yeah.
I love learning about all kinds of things. I can remember when, I'm going to refer to Rolls-Royce again, but because they got somebody who'd got a degree into a job that the degree was nothing to do with. So I said to somebody, how come you've employed him? Because he knows nothing about the job. I said, he's got a degree, I'm going to say in art. It wasn't art, we'll just say hypothetically it was art.
Right.
And I'm like, he's come to an engineering job and this is nothing, not relevant at all. And he turned around and he said to me, and he said, but he's shown with the degree that he's got an aptitude to learn. And I thought, now I'm getting you. And it is right. It is right. But I still think personality is a massive thing with any sport. And I love watching sports. I like watching, especially like Ronnie O'Sullivan. I don't know if you've seen snooker over there. He's a phenomenal snooker player. Roger Federer. And watching how easy they make the game. And some darts players. And then I like the darts because you can see when the pressure starts, their own pressure starts being applied into their game, and then how it affects them. And you can learn from that.
You can.
I'm just trying to think of situations. I can remember, because you put, I don't know quite how to put it. So when you're learning to do something, sporting, I don't know what it's like in America, but if you're hitting 90%, it was like a real achievement to get like a 90 average of something at a sporting shoot, it's happened. 90s weren't as common as they are now, but I think shoots have got easier at home. So to hit the 90% felt like you were walking a tightrope. And then I'm trying to think, why did it feel like you're walking a tightrope? Because you can only miss 10. But now if I think I've missed 10, I've shot like an absolute idiot.
Right.
Regardless of how hard it was.
Right.
Because it's one thing, like I say to customers, so what hot targets are hard? So you can see them, just try what's... And I love asking this question because it gives me an answer for something for them to work on. And then they realise they don't have to work on it as much as they thought. A hard target's something you don't know what to do with.
I like that.
And that's what I say to them. I said, you can't say it's a teal or anything else because close teal, or has it got a distance on it? Has it got speed on it? And I don't think there's enough spoken about what we can actually see, because if you take Olympic trap, for instance, they mount the gun, and I know this is fact, I've spoken to people that actually I don't do it, Olympic trap that is. So they mount the gun, they look above the gun for the target, disconnect the eyes from the gun, and they don't see it again. And that's because they're doing something quick. And obviously the slower you do something, the more you're going to see. But it's not very often that you actually hear people talking about shooting things that are quick and not seeing anything, because it doesn't make sense. But you can actually apply a process to it. And it does sound bizarre, but it's true. People that shoot to quite a high level will know what I'm on about. An example of basically what you should see and what you shouldn't see, because I can give an example of that. If you're wanting to aim at something that's fast, you have to let it go a long way to line it up. But if you are shooting that target as a second target and you've already aimed at the first target, you're going to feel massively under pressure to try and get your movement lined up with that target. And it's very difficult. it's more difficult than doing what I'd say by using the target and not the gun. And by
Right.
that, I mean by using your hand with the target, because our hands, our proprioception, we trained from when we're 4 to 5 years old, but you'd already know that, wouldn't you?
Well, what you're reminding is kind of coming full circle, because you said one of the things you like to do is watch shooters and their different personalities and how they do things. And in the body movement, you talked a little bit ago about how important it is that body movement is going with the target. And, just kind of circling back, I remember the first time I watched George Digweed at Nationals, and everybody else that was in the shoot-off was, like, right there reading the targets, waiting their turn next to the stand, and he was on the bench, like, laid back, with his arm back, and he's, like, looking at the crowd and just kinda looking around, and then when it's his turn, he went up and he would shoot, and then he would go back, sit on the bench again. So it's fascinating seeing the different personalities and different techniques, and then how they.
Why
Mhm.
would you think he'd do that, Dawn?
Well,
I think I do know it, but
I think I know too. Well, one, looking at the audience, looking around is not looking there for a reason. Maybe doesn't want to see what the other shooters are doing, doesn't want to overthink it. Like, he's, I would say, avoiding something that could be problematic related to overthinking or seeing something he doesn't want to see.
yeah, without a doubt. Um,
Yeah.
and we are creatures of, I'm going to say habit. We are creatures of habit, but we will copy things as well, won't we? With that involuntary copy things. So if you're watching, you can actually copy a mistake without even knowing, or you can actually correct something that somebody's doing something wrong that you're not going to anyway, and then you'll miss by correcting something that they've done that you were never going to do.
Yes, I
So
sat at a station. I don't remember if it was that same Nationals or another one or whatever, but there was this one particular station that I just heard people, talking about and complaining about, and the targets on this one station. So I sat there, and that, I didn't have my logo or nothing. I just looked like somebody sitting there watching, and every squad was different. So there could be, like, let's say, a leader of the squad, right? That's the one that was kind of like, I don't know, maybe he's been shooting longer, or he just is more vocal or whatever. And they would all look to him to see what sequence was he going to shoot these targets, and which one was he going to shoot first, and then they'd follow his lead. Or another time, somebody would appear to know what they're doing, shoot him in a certain sequence, and then somebody else, so there wasn't really conversation, but they're just observing that, and then they try to do it the same way. But then there would be an outlier, the one that's like, I'm going to do it my own way, and then you'd break them or something. But it was really interesting to watch how each squad had a different attitude, a different way of handling it, different way of, like, who they sought to be their expert. Yeah, what they trusted, if they would have enough confidence to not do what everybody else was doing. Cool stuff.
yeah, you've just mentioned something there, confidence. You can't do anything well without confidence.
Yeah.
So you've got to train that to be confident, I think. But the trouble with confidence is, I always say it's like happiness. It can soon leave you.
Mm.
And it's getting yourself back onto that confident track. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword, confidence is, because without success, you won't be confident. So to
Y-
train is, for me, I mean, I'd say I didn't practice or train, but I did. I was doing it in the pigeon hide. I wasn't actually doing it on the clay field.
Mm.
And the thing is, that's probably where I have got my thought process from, the picture thing. Well, I've tried the picture things. I've tried it and I can't do it. For the
Yeah.
simple reason, I think it's too mentally taxing. And
You
not only
never.
that, I think you become a fisherman, not a shooter.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Right. So what I mean is, so if you go to a target, you think, I'm going to give that 2-foot lead, and you go bang,
Okay.
you're bypassing what the target's doing to give it
Okay.
an outcome of 2-foot lead.
Yeah.
So you miss it where you're either in front or behind
And
normally.
that's like the fishing. You're
Yeah.
throwing
So
it
then
out.
you
Yeah.
correct it, and then
Uh-huh.
you do it again wrong. So then and I've heard this 100 times, well, loads of times. So then they miss it again, and then they'll go, oh, I'm in front of it now, and then go bang and hit it. Well, they'll say, at least I found it. And I'm like, the way you went about it, you found disaster.
You found disaster. Nice. Well, you touched on something with confidence. And what you said, I would say a very large percentage of the human population would agree with what you said. But I want to throw out there that there's another way to build confidence. And it doesn't have to come with the win. It doesn't have to come with the perfect, right? And I know you know this already. So once I break it down, you're going to be like, well, yeah. But, there's something to learn in every mess. And if somebody wants to excel or improve, you actually have to address the misses in a constructive way, meaning I'm functioning at this level because of this thing or these things that I keep doing. And unless I stop and pause long enough to look at that and dissect it and then work on it, then I'm going to keep getting the same results. So ideally, even a miss is invaluable information, right? And so what happens and it's same with like you want to call it a failure or a loss or I didn't win, something like that. There's invaluable information in those things. And so if a person can stop long enough, and it's what I would say is to get out of their ego, like I should have won that, I should have broke that, whatever it is, then they can actually pause and not decrease their confidence because of the miss, because the decrease comes from beating yourself up and telling yourself you're an idiot or you're stupid or that was wrong or that was bad or something.
Very true.
So you clearly can build confidence with a win. But even still, I mean, like you said, 10 targets is now not good to miss 10 targets. I know top shooters that if they miss 1, 2, or 3 or whatever, they're getting in the car to leave that day and they're pissed. They're like, oh, and depending on their personality, could be tearing themselves up. Like, I'm an idiot. I'm stupid. Like, I'll never win this event, whatever it is. And so that's how you decrease confidence, by just ripping yourself apart and not seeing the good in situations. So you can actually see the good in anything, but even a win, you can see the bad and still formulate negative beliefs that are destructive.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. You can think that you've won a competition and you haven't really shot that well, just people have shot worse than you.
Yeah. One of your Facebook posts, you were like, I don't know if you were joking or not. But you had said, somebody let me know the score before Monday, I think, because I don't know if I'm going to win this. And everybody kept saying you were going to win it. And you're like, I don't really know. And everybody kept saying you hit phenomenally. So I don't know. There might have been some underlying joke, but I thought that was interesting.
No. There. I looked at who was left to shoot, and you know the people that can actually. There's people that are capable of shooting the score, but there aren't many people that that can actually shoot the score to beat you. There is a difference. So you could get somebody, you do get the anomaly where somebody will have a good day, but normally there's consistently good people. And one of those was James Atwood. It won the World Compact. He shoots incredibly well all over the place, and he'd shot a 98 on the first course. I did hear that. So I thought, well, he only has to shoot a 96 on the second one and they're not particularly difficult targets.
I got you.
Until you want them, of course.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he didn't beat me. I said unfortunately, didn't I? Yeah.
What? Freudian slip. So you do seem like the kind of person that likes to have fun. So I do want to kind of circle back on that. And one of the examples of this fun, which I'd like to know more details on, is why was George Digweed signing your bare butt?
Than James Bradley Day, who was winning it at the time out of 117 out of 120.
Okay.
And they were saying it's easy. So I put a post on, if somebody beats that score, I'll bare my arse in Burton's window. And Burton's was a clothing chain that shut down. So I knew it was never going to happen.
Right.
So, but then Mark Windsor went to shot 119 and won it, which was phenomenal. Anyway, so when I came over to M&M to shoot the World Sporting, I was talking to Kate, and George is doing his meet and greet thing. So one of the pictures that George was signing, Kate got it and forged his signature.
Okay.
And said, take this as a voucher. You daren't take this to George as a voucher to get him to sign it on your arse. and a to-do dance. So that's how that came about.
Yeah, and then they were telling you a tattoo is next, right?
Yeah, yes. Well, I did say if I won it, I'd tattoo it on.
Well, and going back to personalities and fun, you can't not be yourself and expect to have peak performance. So I want to touch back on, when somebody said to you, you're here to have fun and I'm here to win. That's a hot debate I've noticed. My last chapter in my book it's called Have Fun Again. And so because of that, there have been people that have brought this topic up to me. They'll be like, real shooters aren't there to have fun. They're there to win. And I'm not there. I didn't spend all this time and money and effort just to goof off, And so there's definitely conversations around that. But my definition of what fun is let's say, let's look at the opposite. It's like miserable, right? Like somebody who's not having fun. If you're looking at like the mental game or their mindset, they're angry, they're resentful, they're frustrated, they are regretful, they are trying too hard, they're overthinking, they want to quit, they want to give up. There are all these mental issues that are quite the opposite of having fun. And if you think about being in the zone, they're also the opposite of being in the zone. Like somebody functioning at their highest level is not angry, pissed off, resentful, regretful, trying too hard. They're not, it's not there at all. Yeah.
No,
So,
without a doubt.
and so, like, my book takes someone through the process of being able to get to the last chapter, which is have fun. Why would you do something that you loved at some point and probably still love on some level, but if you're like thinking, I don't want to do this anymore, or you're halfway through and you want to quit and you're just aggravated, why would you spend all that time and money and effort and then be miserable, right? So having fun to me is part of it, but I don't think that it has to be like the goofing off to the point that you're not serious and in the process. So I'd say then there's different ways of defining, what the have fun is. Also, because you do have that kind of personality that enjoys things and likes to goof off. If you didn't honor that, you would not be yourself. And I would say you probably wouldn't compete as well because you would be basically pretending to be something that you're not. So what do you see? Because you have won many times. And you said it was just last year that you started questioning if you were taking it seriously enough, but you've been winning many times before that. So what kind of fun do you think that you've been having that apparently has been working?
Oh, that's been working. I was just thinking of all the times I had fun that didn't work. It's difficult to say really because I think you've got to be cheerful. You could sort of. I'm just trying to think. When you were talking, I was thinking you can actually to be sort of make yourself pretend you're having fun. I know that sounds a bit weird, but you've definitely got to be happy, and you can't be focusing on something you've done wrong. As long as you understand what you've done to do something wrong, I think that takes away, understanding what you've done takes away that beating yourself up so much.
Yeah.
Because if you know what you've done, you know you can put it right. It's if you've done something fundamentally wrong. When I've been watching people, because I shoot with quite a few customers and friends that I like to have a laugh with, which helps. It lightens the Sunday shoot up. But the bigger competitions, I'm just trying to think of watching people. I think you can be too serious up to the point where you lose focus on something.
Uh-huh.
You lose focus on what you're doing and you start focusing on the wrong things. Like somebody's shot a score of such and such, because that always happens. Somebody will always tell you that somebody's done well.
Uh-huh.
And I trained myself in this because I'd go to normally to 200 bird shoots on a Sunday. And when I got to the second shoot, I would scour the scoreboard on purpose to find who was winning, what the scores were. And sometimes there were like 97s, 98. Not as much as in the past as they are now, but So say if there was 95, I'm going to say 97, 98 is a bit extreme. So 95. So you're going out there knowing that you've got to beat 95. I just realised, I'm telling you, I didn't take this seriously. I probably took it more seriously on a Sunday than I did the major competitions because I was going on holiday. Right. All right. I digress again.
Sorry.
So I do that on purpose to myself and still talk to my friends and have a laugh and try and make a joke of things. But when I got in the stand, I was trying to hit the targets and I was trying to let that score affect me so I can deal with it, do something about it in the stand. So I'm putting myself under pressure, not having pressure from because I know that when you shoot in other competitions, people will tell you these scores, even if you don't want to know.
I got you. Yeah, it's almost like you're training on that concept, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, 100% I was literally trying to train my brain to become armoured against it. And now somebody could tell me the score. Here's a good example. I shot the UK Compact Championship, and we all know that Compact, the targets are easier and you've got to straighten it. And this particular shoot, there was 900 straights in, and I was the last squad out.
Wow.
There were 8, and I knew we couldn't miss. But because I'd done this in the past of knowing scores, I didn't let it affect me. I just gave myself a process to do stuff.
Nice.
Because if you do the process, you are going to hit them.
Yes.
It's another confidence building block because to then achieve 100 straight and then go into the shoot off with the other people to shoot 100 straight that had shot 100 straight and win it again, it was a great mental achievement. And
Absolutely.
I feel like I've done all this too late in life because now obviously I'm nearly 50 and as you can see I'm wearing glasses and half blind. I have to shoot by braille. Yeah, so
it's not too late. It sounds like you're still very active and you're going to a lot of events and it's not too late, right?
No. I mean, like Dubai, last time I went to Dubai, I drank too much. There's no two ways about it.
That's the wrong kind of fun, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, we'd go out at night and just have a party and it was great. And I really enjoyed it, but then I didn't want to shoot.
Right.
You're like dehydrated, it's hot. It wasn't the weather to be feeling hungover in. And I thought to myself, well, 10, 12 pounds a pint, it'll soon put me off. But once you'd had 2 or 3, you didn't care. So, but this year, I am hoping to behave myself, basically, and try and treat myself like I am actually grown up and not a child.
Struggle sometimes, I'm sure.
But yeah, a lot of the time, yeah.
Without a doubt. But that is really, especially for someone who likes to have fun. I'm sure you have a bunch of buddies that are all laughing and having a good time. The same way when you were a child and going with your father, and I think you said your uncle, right? Like that's this fun element that you've had ever since you were a kid as part of it, which I think is cool. I'm sure you have lots of friends that are that way. So it would be a challenge to not drink or party then when you're traveling on a holiday or at an event that's out of town. And for someone who enjoys doing things like that. So it would be one more aspect of what you're training for. And I don't mean, not drink the rest of the time. I just mean like, what am I going to improve upon? Like this is the new data that I'm now adding to my software, and what am I going to improve upon this next time?
Yes, without a doubt. Annoying, and I am going to act on it. The annoying part about it, Dawn, is it's taken me till I'm nearly 50 to do it. And I think it's because I don't like the hangovers anymore.
Oh my gosh, they do get horrible when you get older, don't they?
They do, yes, without a doubt.
Yeah. I actually remember my last hangover because I was like, never again. Well, no. Then
Why do we lie to ourselves?
And I had to get on an airplane. Oh my gosh, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was peanut butter whiskey. Joe loves telling people that story. We were in Nashville going to all the honky tonks. I don't know if you've ever been, but it's like one live band after another. You can walk, 5 feet to the next bar entrance with the next live band with the next drink. And you either stay because you like the band or you leave because you don't. And so if you go 6 feet down to the next one, you're ordering another drink because you can't just sit there and listen to the next band without another. And you either like them or you don't. And then you just do this all night. And I had seen this neon sign that said peanut butter whiskey. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. Yeah.
Oh dear. Peanut butter. That's one thing. Oh dear. That I will pretty much eat anything but peanut butter. You've just hit one of that and celery. I'm flipping. That's the two things that I
Not
yeah.
doing
So
it, huh?
no,
Well, cool. I love that you've had so much great success in your career and in your shooting, and some cool things you've learned along the way. What would be, one piece of wisdom that you'd want to pass on to shooters of your 50 years now that you have on this earth?
one piece of wisdom. Crikey! I wish I'd been prepared for that because I could think about this and
I'll let you think
properly.
about it. I'll tell people. Well, I'll keep talking while you're thinking. Um,
Okay.
all right. So everybody, if you're listening, you can get some free mental training or free access to my Mind Mastered app, or even a free golf cart to my shotgun club. If you go to dawngrant.com/free, and definitely would be interested in seeing you at any of the NSCA events or the NSCA event at my club. And back to you, Nick. What would be your wisdom of your years to pass on?
This is the child in me wanting to come out, and I've got to stop it. Right. So, I would say that target speed is far more important than distance.
Okay, well, now expand on that.
Right. So, for people that are lead based, the speed of a target dictates the lead far more than the distance does.
Yeah.
Because and reading the speed is far more important because people, especially the guessers, as I call them, are likely to give something a long way off that's slow and give it a lot of lead when it's hardly moving, so it doesn't need much.
I gotcha. And that's something you've learned
Yeah.
probably the hard way over the years.
Yeah, I'm normally pretty good at the slow stuff. For some reason, I know why a lot of people aren't, but I know why I am, because I've shot hundreds and hundreds of pigeons, thousands of them, coming into decoys or landing at the back of the pattern, and they're a long way off and they're hardly moving. So you learn the control. That's a good thing. Control of your movement is very, very important.
Yeah.
And keeping a clear mind and relax. That is a relaxation. You don't do anything well tense.
No, tense shoulders, tense hands, tense jaw. Like you said, that movement and that flow is so important.
Yeah.
So what do you do to help yourself to relax or to clear your mind, which would be what I consider elements of the mental game?
Do you know, I can't describe it because people have asked me this hundreds of times because they say you always look so relaxed, like you don't care, which isn't true. But I know that I feel relaxed. But I would say that several things have helped me relax. I used to do quite a lot of welding, and if you're walking a cup round a pipe and you tense up, you learn to relax to gain movement,
Oh, nice.
and you have to concentrate.
Nice.
So it also trains you to clear your mind to do what you're doing. And that's something I was doing for 12, 14 hours a day. And you just learn to do it. And you get up to a point where you can relax that much, where you can start thinking of all kinds of stuff, and it doesn't affect you.
Right.
So that's one thing that I would say that's helped.
That's cool. That's a great example of training, even though you didn't realize it, on focus, clearing your mind, being present, totally engaged on the specific details of what you're doing, and having a relaxed body. So all that was necessary for your peak performance as a welder and for doing it for that many hours and that many years. I mean, that's ingrained in you, and that would totally transfer over to your clay shooting. That's cool.
Without a doubt. And it's as if it's like a switch being flicked. You can just do it.
Nice.
That's why I say it's hard. It's hard to describe. You know how you've got there, but how are you actually doing it? How would you actually describe how you're doing that? Because you're sort of describing something that doesn't exist, aren't you? Not actually.
It's invisible to the eyes, like something else you said earlier in the call, and that's what the zone is. So, and a lot of so-called experts or high-level shooters will say you can't make the zone happen. I actually teach people how to be in the zone, and it is a flip of a switch. When you understand what it is and you've trained on the concepts of what it is, you can turn that on or off. Like how engaged, how present, how engaged, how focused, how clear-minded, how much in this moment can I be? And that's a decision, and it comes easier if you've trained on it and you
Yes,
were
without
training
a
on it.
doubt. And
Yeah.
I say that to my customers. I said, what you are doing is a choice. You are choosing to do it. And I said, until you understand that you are choosing to do what you are doing, you will carry on doing it. It's
Nice.
understanding the choices that we've got. Because I do try and pass on. I know that I can say something to myself and I can sort of switch my brain off. I know it sounds bizarre, but I can sort of like just switch my brain off and just, and apparently it's easier for blokes and women. I don't know if that's true or not, because your brains are more active and stuff. I don't know if that's true. I
I
know
think,
that
yeah,
male
it's
or
a
female, there's
variety. Yeah.
one thing you can focus on one thing. But I can do it now, Dawn. I could literally do it while I'm speaking to you now. I can just switch off. I know that sounds stupid,
No, but
but
I get it though.
it's because I've
Especially
welded for so many years.
exactly. So all these clay shooters like get out there and start doing welding. But no, that would totally train you in that. That's an awesome example. There are other things too. It would have to be, under pressure of something very important and very technical, that if you allowed your mind to wander, then it would kind of get messed up in some way. So to need out of necessity to be totally focused, totally present, totally engaged, cut out the things around you, cut out thinking and your conscious mind wandering, and just to be there. Like, that's awesome. Anybody can find a way to learn how to do that. And there's different ways that you can train on doing that. But you had that in your profession, which is cool. It would totally carry over.
Right. So do you think it would actually help shooters to do something practical that's important, where they can use their eyes and hands under pressure? I'm trying to get sort of have an analogy of how you could actually train it. You've probably already got it, but I'm just trying to say as a coach, and how if you could do something, because it hasn't got to be shooting related for it as a task.
Exactly. So first of all, you could just send them to my online course. But secondly,
Yeah.
the conscious mind, the more bored it is, and this is another cool thing about what you're saying, I would imagine welding could be pretty mundane and monotonous and boring. And so it takes extra training, extra practice to keep your conscious mind there with something that can be mundane and monotonous. That's the same with clay shooting and sporting clays, multiple pairs. It can be mundane and monotonous. Driving down the highway can be mundane and monotonous. So these things are opportunities, like doing the laundry, mowing the lawn, just sitting outside, waiting for an appointment, waiting your turn. There are all these opportunities in life that are boring, mundane, nothing really exciting. And your conscious mind is going to tend to want to drift off. So what you do instead is you decide, you tell it what it's going to do. And it can be like feel the temperature of the air on your skin. It can be watching the clouds. It can be the ants, But as soon as you start, feel the temperature of the air on your skin, how long can you hold that attention? Because your mind's going to want to, oh, I feel it. Okay, then it leaves. Well, no, make it continue to feel the temperature of the air on your skin. You can also do breathing in, feel the breath come in through your nose and feel the little hairs in your nose, or feel the warmth of your breath coming back out through your throat. So there's really unlimited. If you understand the concept, and you can train on teaching your conscious mind to be focused and engaged.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. You just reminded me of a question that I read before we did this podcast. And one of your questions was, how much as a percentage do you think shooting is the mental game?
Yeah.
Right.
Hot
So
topic.
now you've just started talking to me about using your conscious brain to do things. I used to say that when I was shooting, I wasn't thinking of anything.
Mm-hmm.
I would plan it and then go and do it. But you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to give your brain something to do consciously, without a doubt, 100%. So I would say there is a big learning curve in learning the process, and then I'd say it's pretty much all mental. To then execute that process, because your brain controls everything.
It absolutely does. And I agree. If you really wanted to get technical, it's 100% mental because your brain is your computer. Even your mechanics are in your brain. But
Yeah.
when they say 90% mental, they're talking more about like you can practice, you can have the best instructor, the best shooter, the best gun, the best glasses, the best of everything, and practice 5 days a week and go out there and then be upset with your wife and then not shoot as well because you're thinking about that. Now, you can have had a disagreement with your wife, but flip the switch, like you were saying, and still be able to be present in the target and in that moment. But if you don't have that skill and you're bringing that argument or you're annoyed with your squad mate or whatever it is, you're bringing that to the table, then that's why it's 90% mental, because it's going to trump everything else, all the
It
other.
is, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And it'll be so personal to people because of the personalities that we've spoke about. And it's finding something that will trigger it or finding a way of flipping that switch. Because you could say it to one person, as you know, and it won't work for somebody else because they'll start drifting off. And they've got to prepare to put work into it as well. And try effort and try different avenues of how you can actually take control of yourself. And that sounds bizarre, as if you're not in control. But you are genuinely, I would say you are genuinely not in control of yourself
Exactly.
when you are focusing on things that are bad.
It's said that people are like walking zombies. They're all in the stories in their mind, just walking through their day-to-day life. They're not even experiencing what's really happening. They're thinking about some scenario that could happen in the future or something that happened earlier in the day or yesterday or the day before. And that's no different than worrying about your score, worrying about a previous station, a previous shot, previous round. But that's what these humans are doing. They're walking around in this zombie state, and in order to break yourself of that, you have to first recognize the problem, but then get to work on it and ideally learn. You're going to keep getting the same results with the information you have. You have to learn how to be different and then train on it. No different than training in anything else, because you have to break the old habits and then implement some new skills. And like, what are these new skills, right? You got to learn what those are.
Yeah, so there's a good analogy that I actually saw on YouTube. There's a little on habits on YouTube. There are loads, and there's a lot of what I think's rubbish. It's not necessarily rubbish, but it's just my personal opinion. But one of the best analogies I saw on breaking habits, and I can't remember her name, but she said, imagine your brain being a jungle, and the habits have carved a path down through this jungle. But you have got to try and cut a new path so that one grows up and you no longer take that path. And if you say that to people, and I have done it, I say, if you don't work on changing this habit, and what will happen is when you start trying to train out of that habit, you'll flip back into it, but you've got to recognize it, and then all of a sudden that habit disappears. I thought that was a great analogy of that.
It is. I always used to use a similar one, like walking to grandmother's house every day. But you know what that's an analogy for? It's literally what your brain does. So they're called synapses pathways and neurotransmitters, and you've probably seen imagery of it somewhere. But there's like the transmitters and then the pathways between. And when you're learning something new, it almost looks, I don't know, like a snake that's like coming out until it makes the connection on the other side. And then once the connection's made, then there's like this free flow. And that's when something is like automatic, like putting a fork to your mouth or driving a car or whatever. You don't have to think about it anymore. It's subconscious and it's like already in there. But if you want to stop that thing because it's a bad behavior, then you have to stop putting energy into it, which is going to be tricky because there's already a nice path built in your synapses pathways. But then you have to deliberately create a new one or several new ones and put the effort in, which is repetition, in order to create that new path. And it would be like walking through the woods and all the bushes and everything. You got to find that new path and then repeat it.
Right. So I think a good question for you, as people listening, and we know that there's different personalities, but as an average, how many times do you think somebody would have to do a different task to make that the norm?
So they say, 28 to 30 days to create a habit. There's kind of a saying around that. That's if you consciously, deliberately do the right thing. You mentioned earlier, like you can practice the wrong stuff too, right? But whether you're talking about shooting or just day-to-day habits, like anything related to life, a physical action or a repeated thought, which becomes a belief. But if you repeat that thing like 28 to 30 days, then you're likely to have created a new habit. But what I've learned as having a private practice and doing hypnosis is, first of all, that's not always foolproof, right? Like, let's just say gun mount and practicing shooting, you could always not be fully mounting. And then your repetitions aren't nice and pure for 28 days. Or let's say you're trying to change your gun mount and the other one is already instilled as a habit. So then you have to really work hard to not revert back to the old behavior. So it's tricky to change something that way. And that's why I like hypnosis, because hypnosis bypasses this conscious mind and it goes to that subconscious and it creates either a belief or a habit as if it's been there the 28 days. So it actually compresses the amount of time that it takes to make a change, which is why it can seem fairly miraculous. It's just the way that it works. So a person has to be receptive. They have to go into a relaxed state willingly, and they have to want whatever suggestions are being given to them. So if they have those two things, then they've instantly increased the likelihood of success. And then the suggestions can come in, and it doesn't take 28 days then. Right. That's why it's so cool. That's why hypnosis helps people to change, bad habits like quitting smoking or whatever. And so all I've done is taken that understanding and then not only created mental training out of it, but made hypnosis for clay shooters. Like I have a plan, prepare, focus hypnosis audio that was after talking to a lot of clients related to why do I always do well in the first several pairs, but not the last. Or I missed the first ones, but not the last ones. Or I do well in the first stations, but not the last stations, like this inconsistency thing. And so I broke it down to, suggestions related to plan, prepare, focus, like be deliberate and serious about every target. Because the other was, why do I hit the hard ones, but not the easy ones, right? Well, you can't take them for granted. You can't let your mind go lazy on the final pair, or you can't be, worried about your shot plan on your first pair. Like there's so many different things that potentially can be going on based on the personality. For one person, it could be, I'm thinking about those people watching me. So whatever it is, you got to get into the plan, prepare, focus. And as you said a little while ago, you got to give your conscious mind something to do. Like 20, 30 years ago, I used to think the conscious mind needed to be in the back seat, like get out of the way. But I realized it needed to be in the passenger seat. It does play an active role, but you got to tell it what to do. And then you allow the subconscious mind to drive the car, which is the shooting instinctively or intuitively.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think the hypnosis side is interesting for me because I don't think that I'm possible to be hypnotized.
Okay.
But when you just said you have got to be willing for it to happen, and I thought, yeah, I could do that, but I still don't think you'd be able to do it. And I thought, hang on, you're disagreeing then about being willing. And I thought, well, it'd be interesting because I do smoke, and I wish I didn't.
A big part of my job as a hypnotherapist is to explain hypnosis in enough detail to the person understands it and is comfortable with it. I feel like if I don't do that, I'm doing them a disservice because then we're just going to jump into hypnosis. They don't know what it is. So then they have their guard up and they're like, well, I ain't going to relax. But, so if obviously I could teach you a ton about that. You could go on my online course, my website. I can, just narrow it down. Conscious mind is either in beta, alpha, theta, or delta. And beta is when it's really active and chattery and analyzing, which is a problem when you're shooting, right? Especially if it's fear-based thinking. The measurement of your conscious mind relaxing a little bit, meaning less activity, is it moves into alpha, is what we call the next level down. And so alpha, in like layman's terms, we would say light relaxation, less chatter. And then there's a level below that we call theta. And that's like, if you were at home, it was like, oh, I was almost asleep. My eyes were closed. I could still hear what was going on, and I was almost asleep. And then below that's delta, which is what we would call sleep. So again, very minimal conscious mind activity in delta. So that's what sleep is. So if you just think, well, the times that I struggle to go to sleep, it's because I'm too much thinking, which is beta again, right?
Yeah.
And so hypnosis, literally, same as meditation, is just another name for the alpha theta state. So a hypnotist, so if you just think of meditation, well, you're relaxing yourself and you're not falling asleep, but you're trying to hover halfway in between. And that's what hypnosis is. So a hypnotist helps you to go into alpha or theta. You have to do it willingly. If I said to you, close your eyes, you don't have to, right? If I said to you, focus on your breath and just start to relax and relax your shoulders with every exhale, you either go along with that or you don't. Like if you had fear around hypnosis, like it's mind control or it's crazy or whatever, then you're going to not follow along. But if you're comfortable and you understand that it's just alpha theta and I pass through it every time I go to sleep and every time I wake up and it's not a big deal, I just have never learned about it, right? So then you allow someone to help you to go into the relaxed state. And just, again, something that we don't learn in school is that when that conscious mind is less active, it's less critical. So if I say, you're the best target shooter in the world and, you've got all this great experience and you've been shooting birds since you could walk and all that translates over so easily to your competitions, that'd be easy for you to accept because you're like, well, yeah, that's true and that's true. And so you would accept those suggestions. But if I said something like, you know what, you're kind of over clay shooting, and from now on, you're going to run marathons and be the best marathon athlete in the world. And you'll be like, no. And you aren't asleep. You're not unconscious, so you are aware enough to hear that kind of thing. And so ideally, suggestions are what you want, and you will accept them because they're what you want. And, if somebody's paying me and I'm talking to them, I usually hear what they want. So the suggestions are usually right on, right? And once they go in there, they're in that subconscious, and then it seems pretty cool. It's not, so hypnosis isn't what most people think it of is. It's not anything to be afraid of. It's just something that you may never have been explained or understood. But you're shooting subconsciously or intuitively, which is, and science has now shown that the zone state is alpha. So going back to you saying, you have to be relaxed and you have to have a quiet, conscious mind. Right there, it makes sense, right? Alpha is partly relaxed and you have a quieter mind than you had in beta. That's what I mean. That's why I think it's cool to talk to top athletes because you may not know why you're experiencing certain things, but you've had enough experience to say, like, quiet mind and relaxed body. And here it is. I'm explaining to you that that's what the alpha state is. And science has said the same thing. So for me to be able to help someone go into alpha state as a private practitioner, I've been doing that for years, for all different subjects. So now I just do it for athletes, and that's the zone state. But people are their own worst enemy. They're going to put themselves back into beta by thinking about their score in an unproductive way, thinking about a miss.
Or even thinking about the zone. If you start thinking about going into the zone, you won't do it. You will not get there.
Exactly. And that's because there are these high-level respected people that will say, you can't make the zone happen. And to me, it's because of what you just said. That's because they're trying to make it happen. And that's the opposite. You have to let go, which is another thing that you said. When somebody gets so frustrated or they're not doing well, they end up letting go. And then they shoot better. So it's in the letting go that you experience the zone, and you're your own worst enemy. It would be only the quality of thoughts that keeps you out of it.
Yeah, that's why I think it is massively important to give yourself a process to do something, because it helps your brain get back on track to go to where you're going.
Yes.
And I can't see another route round it, to be honest. I can't see another other than using the process to do it.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And that's something I hear over and over again from mechanics instructors. They're definitely telling people to focus on your process, go back to your process. And again, whether they understand why that works or not is another story. But your conscious mind can only focus on one thing at a time. So it can't think about your score. It can't think about the people around you, your squad mates. It can't think about a previous miss if you're telling it to focus in on the details of this target, where your feet are planted. Start at your feet, go to your knees then. Make sure your body is in the right position, but also can swivel. These are things that you can have your conscious mind do on purpose, and it will keep it from getting in trouble. And then your other elements of your process.
Yeah, I was just trying to think. I was going to add something else to it, and it's gone now. Oh, I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm going to talk while I try and see if it comes back to me. Another problem with age. So we were talking about going into the process to keep the mind conscious, busy to do something.
Focusing on one thing at a time. Your feet, your knees, your posture, your swivel, all these different things.
So it's good to, excuse me, it's good to mess about as well.
Mess about?
So fun, and don't care whether you hit or miss stuff. And do things badly on purpose, because that has a different effect on the brain as well, because you don't expect hit it. If I just do it, I'm not going to say shoot off the hip, because that could be dangerous, but put your feet in the wrong position and have a mess about and make yourself uncomfortable to shoot, and you'll realise that actually all the focus on this stuff isn't that important.
Nice.
Especially for sporting shooting, because you can switch round from one side of the cage to the other side of the cage and pretty much keep your feet planted. Not always, but is it going to actually make you miss? Well, if you run out of movement in your body, yeah, but if it doesn't, if you're not, it won't. And obviously it depends on how athletic people are, because some people have got hyper movement compared to a lot of other people.
Right.
I mean, I would say I'm a bit of a contortionist in that respect. And I'm going to take it back to my pigeon shooting, because the amount of time, because you don't know where they're going to come from. Well, you do know where they're going to come from, but not all the time. One will appear from somewhere and you just shoot it. Your eyes and hands are doing it for you.
Same way
you can actually give that a process and understand it. And it's remarkably simple. And I'm a big believer in keeping things simple. The more simple something is, the easier it is for the brain to focus on it.
Yes. Yeah. And the process itself seems so simple, but what makes it hard is the mental side of it. All the places that the conscious mind wants to go. So we can be our own worst enemy.
Without a doubt. Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. I have a friend, he's probably going to listen to this podcast. He's got better, but you would say that he could fall out with a mirror for no reason. I mean, he's a lovely bloke, absolutely smashing guy. Sunday was a perfect example. He had got 3 or 4 stands to shoot, and he was 5 away. So potentially, he's on for 95. And because he knows his score, he's focusing on, he's going to shoot 95.
Mm-hmm.
So he made a mess of a stand. And I'm asking him to stop, to forget about it. But you can't, when you're so outcome-based, you're not going to forget about it. But you try to have someone to do it. And what I should have done was give him something else to think about. But I know damn well he would have turned around to me and said, well, I've made a mess of it now, and that's it. Like, I'm taking my toys home, and that's it. No, I've done. And he made sure that he shot less than 90, and he could quite easily have done it. But I've spoken to him about it since, and there was no need for him to do that to himself. And I did say that to him, and hopefully hearing it on here as well.
But he's in a habit, and he has his own personality, and these things are showing up, right? These are the knee-jerk reactions of how he handles these situations. And so he'd have to retrain himself, and he can't do it that day. Like, it's going to take effort, and it's going to take repetition of a different way. And that's what training would be. Like, learn something on how to change your mind and how you change your focus and how to change your thoughts, and then practice it in your day-to-day life. That's a big part of my training. Is I tell people, like, this is related to your brain, which you don't have a different one for clay shooting on a Saturday or Sunday competition. You have the same one. And so the ability to focus, the ability to have confidence, the ability to stay in a moment when it's boring or whatever. Like those are skill sets that you can learn, and the practice field is life. Don't wait to competition day to go, oh, I should focus better or I shouldn't think about the score, because you don't know how to do different. It would be very temporary.
Without a doubt. I mean, I see people coming for lessons and I'll say, look, I think you should skip the Sunday competitions that you're going to go to and go and practice what I've shown you.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of people that don't actually do what I've asked them to do, and they don't realise that when you are trying to do something new and hit something, a change, you'll just revert back to type and do what you did before to make sure you get the outcome that didn't happen in the first place.
Especially when they start panicking.
Yeah,
and they're
exactly.
trying something new and it's not established yet, and they start to panic because they're not doing well. They're all like, well, I'll go back to what I was doing, which wasn't working to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the trouble is you've given them an excuse to do it as well.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying something new. And you're
Right.
like, well, and what they'll find is they haven't actually tried something new. They've just tried to hit them the way they did before.
Well, and if something's new, it's too conscious. So remember, the best shooting is subconscious, intuitive, instinctive, like whatever you want to call it. So if an instructor, like if Nick teaches you something new, you need to practice that outside of competition to get the repetition in order for it then to go into your subconscious mind, so that when you go to competition, it's more a natural thing versus thinking about the new information that Nick taught you. Because what happens then is the conscious mind is a slow processor. It can only process like 7 bits of information a second. And the subconscious mind processes like 30 million bits of information a second. That's why it's like phenomenal what you're doing automatically. And you want your shooting, like Nick was saying, related to having hunted and everything. There's some automatic processes there. If all of a sudden you switched to the other side, I don't know if you're right-handed or left-handed, but if you needed to switch or you wanted to go to like a release trigger, it takes more conscious activity. And so it can mess you up for a little bit until you learn it and put it in your subconscious mind. And that's how everything is when somebody goes to an instructor and gets new information. It needs to be practiced before it's put to the test.
Yeah, I only brought that up because you were on about trying to get whilst you're in the competition, trying to get in the moment whilst you're in competition, and you haven't actually practiced it.
Yes.
And that's why I was just thinking where you could actually practice it.
Which, the mental or the mechanics?
Yeah, trying to learn that switch, because I'm going to describe it as my brain is dull. I have a dull feeling. That makes sense. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, I would say
feel dull. I'm there, but it's like life, Jim, but not as we know it.
But I would say that's alpha, because we're used to being in beta where there's a lot of like activity and chatter, like shooters will call it chatter in their brain. That's what is our norm. So to have some dullness to that would mean less chatter. That's what we call the alpha state. And so you can totally train to that. You can train by meditating, doing hypnosis, sticking to it, because at first people have wandering minds and they want to think about something else. So you have to stick to it, and everybody can go into alpha. That means everybody can be hypnotized. Everybody can do meditation. Everybody can quiet their mind. Because you do, in order to go to sleep every single night. Now, you might struggle with that sometimes, depending on what's going on, but it is a human ability to go to sleep. There is a diagnosis. Some people can't sleep for real. Like that's an abnormality. But every other human on the whole planet can go through alpha to theta to delta. And so you can learn to pause in alpha.
That is something I am fantastic at. I'd be a world champion sleeper. I could literally hit the pillow and be asleep in 3 seconds.
Well, you're a world champion at going into alpha. You are. You've proven it.
It's something I've always been very good at, sleeping. I think I could sleep on a bed of nails.
Nice. Well, Nick, apparently we could talk for hours. But
very great.
Yeah, it's been great. I love hearing all this insight that you have and the successes you've had. You said you do instruction, so how can people get a hold of you? What's your contact information?
I have a website, but that at the moment has gone awry somehow. I have got to contact my website and people. So the
But
best
it will
way,
be fixed soon, right?
well, probably
Maybe.
knowing me, technology and stuff, I'm exactly the best. The best way to contact me is probably via social media because it's dead easy.
Okay.
And I always reply to, if I get a message, it's a bit like a phone call, I always reply to them. And yeah, we'll go from there.
All right, cool. Do you have any shout outs or sponsors that you'd like to mention? I noticed you said you're your own sponsor.
Definitely. I had to think about that then. The only reason I'm having to think about that is because Browning are trying to talk me. I was sponsored by them many moons ago, and I keep declining it. And because I've already got a Browning, and that's what I shoot.
Right.
But now they're trying to talk me into sponsorship again, and it's with the new 825, which I do like. But the reason that I'm cautious of it is because Manuel Ricardo in Portugal, there's a big shout out to those because they are phenomenal at making custom stock, and probably the service is fantastic. I know you're over in the States and they're in Europe, but they're well worth a visit. They are fantastic at making stocks. I've just had another one made. That's why Brownie wanted me to shoot the 825, and I feel a bit disappointed that I've now got one for a 525 again. But yeah, very good company.
Nice. Great. Well, when you come into the States again?
I don't know, is the honest answer. I would like to shoot the Nationals or the US Open or something like that, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, maybe you'll know by October.
Probably next year.
Okay.
I don't know where the World Sporting is going to be next year, but it'll be somewhere in America.
Okay. Well, definitely.
So I want to do the Jack Links as well, but that's February time, and it's probably going from. I won't get in it this year, probably fully booked. But I do want to do that because I do think Quail Creek is a fantastic shooting ground. It's a lovely spot, and it's a nice place to be, especially when we have bad weather here.
Yes, for sure. Right, nice South Florida weather and targets by Joe Skull and Doug Vine at a beautiful location. Worth it?
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe next year.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
I hope to see you at some point. If you're in the States, track me down.
Shall do.
A major event, I should be there also.
Great stuff.
Okay,
Look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on Clay Mastermind with Dawn Grant. Mental excellence and industry insights. Brought to you by the Clay Lab. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and informative. Remember, mastering the mental game is key to unlocking your full potential on the course. And through our conversations with industry leaders, we aim to provide you with valuable insights into the world of clay shooting. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, rate, and share it. For more insights, training tips, and updates on upcoming events, Dawn Grant and Amelia Shotgun Sports are on all social media platforms. Go to dawngrant.com and come shoot at Amelia Shotgun Sports. Stay focused, stay driven, and keep pushing your limits. Until next time, Dawn wishes you success and happiness on your journey to peak performance and industry mastery.